Welcome to a special bonus podcast. It's not deconstructing comics. It's not critiquing comics. It's just talking about recent Marvel Cinematic Universe news. This is Tim with Mulele. How are you doing?
I'm good. And you?
Okay. So there's been a lot of Marvel news recently about the movies and the TV shows. So we thought we'd just record something and get it out in the feed as soon as we can. Let's see, there are kind of two main things here. One, there was a lot of discussion about Spider-Man possibly leaving the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Sony taking complete control of the character again. And as we're recording this on Saturday, Japan time, Saturday afternoon.
Say the 24th of August.
Mulele had picked up that probably it was, as a number of commentators had already guessed, just sort of a negotiating tactic by Sony or Disney or both, to sort of, put it out in public and see what the reaction was. But yeah, it sounds like maybe that the whole thing is not going to happen after all, and maybe they've reached an agreement.
Yeah, I think so. There are a couple of things here. So first off, there are a couple of weird things about the Marvel MCU Spider-Man that I want to address. There's no mention of Uncle Ben, which is not a thing. Aunt May...
Not even the rice. Huh?
Not even the rice. and Aunt May is getting happy with Happy, let's say, which is also kind of weird for me. There's a lot of focus on Peter Parker as kind of a Luke Skywalker type character in this universe at this point, which means they're throwing a lot of weight behind this character being there for a long time. And there's a lot of speculation about where they're going to go from here in Phase 4 or Phase 5 that I'm not going to get too heavy into because Tim hasn't seen all of the films. But,
right, as we're recording this, the last one I've seen it up to Ultron.
Yeah. So even the stuff about Happy is a bit of a spoiler. Sorry,
yeah.
Tim. But there's also a lot of hand-me-downs from Tony Stark to hand-me-downs. He's actually developing original suits for Spider-Man, and that seems a little bit of a problem. I mean, starting with we haven't seen that film yet, man. I can't talk about it. But anyway, Tony Stark is designing a lot of stuff for Spider-Man, and in that sense, Spider-Man seems to be less his own thing. He's more of an adjunct to Tony Stark, and there's no great lesson that is mentioned. I should say it's mentioned in passing, but it's kind of like, the trope. But it's not established. It's not foundational. It's kind of nodded at. And there's also this kind of thing where some of the characters have been retconned, and people are beginning to suspect that it has to do with the contract between Marvel and Sony. For Star Trek and Star Wars, Star Trek and Star Wars both, there seems to be a 25% clause that's running through the contracts there between owners. With Star Wars, it has to do with George Lucas getting a percentage of any legacy characters that they use. A percentage of profits. And so Disney is attempting to cut him out of those profits by making everything about the newer characters. So the Millennium Falcon changes a little bit. The The main characters all change a little bit, or no, a little bit, a lot. So Rey is favored over Luke Skywalker, for example. Luke Skywalker becomes the Obi-Wan Kenobi character, but that character is also a little bit different than the Luke Skywalker that we knew way back when. So I don't know if that counts as a 25% change, but the idea is that they'll make more money if they redesign everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so fans are having a bit of an adverse reaction to that, but that's a different story. The same thing is happening, it seems, with Spider-Man in this setting, because a lot of stuff is kind of like true to form, except just little bits and pieces here and there, and it's just enough to say that it's off. And so there are some people who are looking at this whole thing saying, if Sony takes back Spider-Man and actually does an Uncle Ben story, that'll be a relief, because it's part of the actual thing. If they do it right, if they get the right director, if they get the right actors, blah, blah, blah. From what I understand, Tom Holland has still 1 or 2 films left in his contract. So does the director of the first and second Spider-Man film. And the contract that they had with Disney, that Sony had with Disney, is done. They, from what I've read, and to be honest, by the time you hear this, there may be some things that have changed, but Marvel apparently only gets a 5% stake in any films starring Spider-Man, any standalone Spider-Man film. And they wanted a little bit more from here on, especially considering that Spider-Man Far From Home was developed heavily by Marvel. But even though they didn't finance that, they only got 5% of the profits for their labor and for the inclusion in the MCU. It seems a little bit small to me, but at the same time, Marvel has the toy rights and merchandising rights to all that stuff. Sony sees zero of that. The idea is that Sony originally bought the Spider-Man property when Marvel was about to go bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Then the same thing happened to Sony. They were having a lot of trouble, financial troubles, and they put up the merchandising rights for Spider-Man. And Marvel was able to buy those back. And so that's how it is split now.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel wanting to have a larger stake in the movie profits means that they own much more of the character. Not exactly a controlling stake, but they wanted to be a 25 to 50% investor. I'm hearing conflicting reports, but 25 to 50% of the film they wanted to kind of take back under their control. 25 to 50% of the character. And all 900 other characters that are in that universe. With all of this kind of there, Sony decided to bring it to the people, or Disney did, depending on who you believe. But what I understand, the initial report favored Sony more than it did Disney.
Yeah, well, that video that you sent me, he said that, what was the site, Deadline?
Yeah.
That particular reporter was revealed in the Sony hack a while back to be a reporter that they would sort of hand things off to when they wanted to announce something without really announcing it.
Yeah.
And that article did sort of puff up the Sony side.
Yeah.
It seemed like that was their negotiating tactic.
Yeah, but it seemed to have backfired spectacularly as Twitter went mad with "Do not take Spider-Man away from the MCU," and I think later there were some corrections that were made saying, "Oh no, there's still a chance for Marvel and for Disney and Sony to work it out," and I think that was a little bit of damage control. They've rebooted after the initial Sam Raimi run 2 times Spider-Man, and they've both failed spectacularly or amazingly, depending on your take.
Or sensationally.
Yeah, well, One was The Amazing Spider-Man. The other one was Spectacular Spider-Man, I think. It's hard to keep it straight. But
okay. I was just thinking in the comics there was also a Sensational Spider-Man series, but anyway.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Comics. Comics are for suckers. But anyway. So these negotiation tactics often happen in Hollywood stuff, and so everybody's kind of expecting that. And I didn't quite catch it at first, but then you read some comments on that video that I sent you saying that it's a negotiation tactic, and oh yeah, that's right. This is how they do. But whatever the case, it seems that they've kind of worked it out. On a subsequent video that I sent you, sorry, I can't remember the name of the YouTube site is Beyond the Trailer. I forget the name of the person who runs it, but anyway, she said that don't forget that Disney is currently in the middle of building a multi-million-dollar attraction for Spider-Man specifically. They're in the middle of construction now in California.
In California, Disneyland. Okay.
Yeah. And also understand that there's the MCU and there's Star Wars. Those are the two biggest franchises for Disney. But Star Wars is beginning to fail. Now, you could look at Lion King and all those other things that they're putting out as doing quite well, much better than Star Wars is at the moment. But those are not franchises yet. Those are one-off movies because they're not making Beauty and the Beast 2 or Lion King 2 or 3. They apparently greenlit Aladdin 2, and there's some possibility of a Lion King 2 somehow. But, money will find a way, as they say. And they sunk $1 billion into the Star Wars land over in Florida, but that apparently is not going well. So they kind of need to keep Spider-Man in check. It's a major thing with a young actor. It's a very popular series. Everyone loves it, obviously, by the reaction by Twitter. It wasn't like, trending number 1. It was like trending number 1, number 3, number 5, number 10. All through Twitter all that day. It's like, no, save Spider-Man. Apparently, Tom Holland's only comment was to unfollow Sony.
Yeah.
Which I found quite funny.
Well, I wonder, did Sony think that people were going to say, oh, yeah, Sony did Spider-Verse and Venom, so they figured it out. This is going to be great to have it all back in Sony. Was that what they were expecting?
Well, there is something to that, though, because people are looking at two things made by Sony that are considered the best film adaptations of Spider-Man ever. Or film adaptations, I should say, non-comic adaptations. Number 1 being Into the Spider-Verse. Have you seen that?
No, we'll get to that one.
Oh my God, it's fucking good. We should watch it next because it is that fucking good and unrelated to the MCU. It is right. It is amazing. It's inspiring. It's jaw-dropping. And this film won the Oscar for Best Animated Film, beating out Pixar, which is Disney.
Yeah.
So but one thing I do want to say about that, Sony does not know how to market their own films because that was criminally underwatched. Everybody who's into comics, into the arts, looks at that film and says, man, that's amazing. But they don't know. Everybody went to see Toy Story 4 or whatever the fuck. And I don't know, that's good or bad or what. I'm not interested in Toy Story. I mean, for me, Toy Story 3, that was a big yawn. I have no tears for that franchise, and I have no nostalgia for any of those toys. But anyway, that was completely developed by Sony with Lord and Miller who were in the previous year fired by Kathleen Kennedy from their Disney project, which was Solo.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be a lot of Circle of Life stuff here, but anyway, they did that without Marvel, and that film alone is better than any Marvel film, any individual Marvel film that I've seen. It is that good.
Mm.
And the other one I have not seen, the Spider-Man game, also developed by Sony without the help of Marvel, is considered the best Spider-Man story out there.
I haven't heard of this. What? The Spider-Man game?
Yeah, they put out a video game.
Oh, the video game. Okay. Yeah, I think I have seen that, actually, because my son had it.
Yeah, my son doesn't have it, but he'll get it if I pay for it. Is that how that works? Anyway, he'll get it if I pay for it, but he won't necessarily bring his PS4 to my house so I can play with him.
You have to make a deal there.
Yeah. But anyway, I am kind of dying to play that game because I do dig that kind of game, and I dig all the costumes, and apparently the story is oh my god, so good. So yeah, that was done without Marvel. So what has Marvel got? Oh, and Spawn, not Spawn, sorry, Venom. Sorry, they're all the same to me. Venom reaching $800 million worldwide in the box office, despite being a garbage film, a kind of so bad it's good film. Just kind of emboldens them that they have finally figured it out and don't need Marvel anymore. So some people are like, yeah, it's good. And one last comment about this thing about Sony taking back Spider-Man. Disney is now consuming everything. It's almost like the Great Nothing in the Never-Ending Story. I don't know if you've seen that film.
I never saw that, no.
Okay, well, anyway. They're consuming everything. They're buying everything. And soon they will be the only thing.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way.
Yeah, and the idea that there is no competition in movies now because everybody's afraid to kind of put their film up against Disney. It means Disney will make blockbusters and everybody else is just making indies. It's kind of a weird place to be. And what you'll wind up with is kind of a homogenized, bland, by the numbers film production. Everything will start to become the same. And it's just not good.
Yeah.
So the fact that Sony would take a property back and tell Disney no is conceptually a really good thing. Disney should not win everything all the time. One last caveat. Sorry, I keep remembering stuff. This year, was it this year or last year, Spider-Man's copyright would have lapsed according to the 1974 version of copyrights. And it would be a public domain character, meaning that there is no dispute here. Everybody can make their film and may the best man win. But because Disney manipulated copyright law through the Congress of the United States, Spider-Man is still active in copyright. And so there's this dispute.
Yeah.
So they kind of did it to themselves. But I suppose the copyrights that they still hold on Mickey Mouse and the rest of that stuff go quite a bit further than the several billion that they made from Spider-Man, made or didn't make from Spider-Man. Yeah. So the final thing here is that I'm seeing a bit of a report that Sony and Marvel have worked their shit out and have at least agreed. I don't know if signed is quite right, but they've agreed that it's fine. They'll continue to work together, and things will go forward. What that does for Spider-Man 3, but I don't know. The contracts that are in place still say Tom Holland is in for another 1 or 2 films as Spider-Man, and so that ship will be played. It's just a matter of will they play it next year or will they play it in 5 years. And I think Kevin Feige, knowing that this shit was kind of coming, decided not to announce any Spider-Man films during Comic-Con. Currently, D23 going on, I don't know if he's announced or not. Everybody's talking about The Mandalorian, which looks like gold to me, but we'll see.
Yeah, so they've also announced some more, Disney Plus programs. So we already knew about, from San Diego Comic-Con, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, What If. Now they've announced, and Loki. Now they've announced Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, and I was thinking there was another one, but anyway, those are all supposed to be coming. And I guess that, I saw somewhere that these are all going to be in continuity with the movies, and they're trying to make you watch everything. And A, I don't have time, but B, is there even going to be any access to this outside of the U.S. is what I'm wondering. I guess, with these streaming things, often they kind of make it so that it's like for each country, right?
Yes.
So there'd be a Disney Plus that you can only access from an American IP address, and then they'd have to come up with a Disney Plus Japan, I guess.
Possibly.
What's sort of annoying me is I'm remembering the feeling I had when I went to, was it Star Wars Episode 3? I don't even remember what the title was anymore. And it starts out with that... Revenge of the Sith, thank you.
Yeah.
That stuff with General Grievous. And, he had been, I guess, in the animated TV show?
Yeah.
Which I had never seen. I'm like, who's this guy? It starts out in the middle, like you're supposed to know who he is. And that was kind of puzzling to me. And later I found out that, he was in the animated series. I'm like, well, how was I supposed to know that? So I feel like at least in this case, I'll know that I missed something and why I missed it, but I probably won't have seen.
Well, I think
shows.
Around that time, they were trying to kind of pull people into other aspects of the same property. For example, the Star Wars TV show leading into the movie. No one watched the TV show, so the movie was a little bit disjointed or jarring for people like you. And I kind of looked at that and thought, that's kind of a weird way to do it. But then there's also The Matrix 2, where they take one character and her whole segment, her whole arc, her whole mission is kind of referenced in the film, but actually there's this Matrix game that you got to play, which is specifically her mission. So if you didn't play the game, you don't know her storyline. And she just kind of like, okay, here's the plan. And it just kind of, she fades out. It's like, what is this now? But they kind of stopped doing that, and this is kind of a return to that. But Marvel is moving in such heavy form. They've got so much momentum and weight behind them that if you want to keep up with this shit, forget the TV shows that they had in the past. These are the films.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of a 2 or 3 hour film, you're now getting a 7 or 8 hour film. Watch it and see the next thing. They're also staggering the series. Okay. So far from what I've seen, none of them overlap, which makes me think that they're going to lead into each other the same way the films kind of do.
Sure, that makes sense.
And I know that WandaVision does lead into the next Doctor Strange film,
Okay.
but I don't really know how any of the other things lead into each other. But I would guess they're going to continue with that formula.
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, it's becoming the same as the comics, where you don't know what's going on unless sometimes. I mean, I think they've got that somewhat under control in the comics, but sometimes it's still kind of hard to understand what's going on. I don't know. DC is another story. It's like I just can't get into a DC book because I don't know all the history. But anyway, that's another topic.
DC book, like
DC Comics.
Batman?
Yeah, I was trying to read Batman for a while, and well, that's a whole other story. It wasn't just because of continuity issues. It was just the way that Tom King is doing the story was just not to my taste.
Well, that's why I always say reading is for chumps. just watch the movies and be happy.
Okay. Anyway, so so of course we've been talking a lot about MCU on Critiquing Comics, and we're actually watching the movies and talking about them on our show on Patreon at the Deconstructing Comics Patreon page. And if you support us at least $4 a month, then you can hear our Tim Catches Up with the MCU series, where, well, of course, we did the first two Iron Man movies eons ago on Deconstructing Comics, and we skipped Hulk, so then we started out with, what was it, Captain America, Thor?
Yeah, Captain America, I think.
And we've watched everything from that point on, and as you're hearing this, hopefully I'm getting this out right away, and Saturday the 31st, our Avengers Age of Ultron show will come out. So yeah, please support us at patreon.com/deconcomics, and you can hear all of those. So, any final thoughts?
No, that's about it. But I will say that given all of this hype building this week for the Spider-Man controversy, if they did in fact ink a deal and they announce as the final thing at D23 that they're going to make a Spider-Man movie and it'll come out in 2 years or 1 year or whatever, that will bring down the house. Because there's been so much hype built into this and people's emotions are kind of raw and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems like the ultimate setup for that kind of thing.
Yeah, and maybe they've just been manipulating all of us.
It could very well be. And if that is the case, then goddamn, they're playing some high-level 3D chess. Spock probably couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for listening, and talk to you again soon. Thank you, Mulele.
Thank you.